Yo, what up? We are up. We are live. This is my first time ever doing this. I just passed 100 subscribers, just passed my first 50 subscribers actually today. And I'm ready to share these gems. So if you are in here, then share with somebody because I'm dropping it all, like whatever it is that's gonna take to get people to the next level. I'm dropping it all, like whatever it is that's gonna take to get people to the next level when it comes to business funding, getting their structure together. If you have a question about what's going on, a question about anything that's on the screen, then let me know. I will shout you out and get things going. So, but first, let's talk about who I am. So I'm Kyle Alexander. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I am a teacher, a coach. I am a mentor. I am a student forever. And my goal is to be able to get to freedom, financial and otherwise, and use that freedom to help other people get to freedom as well, so they can live their best lives. They can put good things into the world, and that's what I'm about. So I want to leverage what's the fastest way possible and still the most secure way possible to do that, and that's through business funding, right? That I've found. So in my household, we've gotten over 500,000 in business credit to be able to leverage towards different investments, real estate and mentorship, and business and trucking, different things like that. And through my journey, I've gone all out in the past 4 years, and I got the battle scars to show it. So I really want to help people to know how to avoid some of the pitfalls that I've had myself too, and be able to win. So this is what I'm doing. So like I said, I'm excited to be able to do this and just and share this information. So I'm going to get right into it. Again, if you feel like somebody needs to hear this, then share it, share this out. But I'm just going to get started, right? So, and if somebody has a question, let me know. Again, it's my first time doing a live. So, send a comment, send a message, whatever it is, so I can see it and answer your question. But I appreciate all of those that are tapped in right now. And so I'm going to just get going, right? So number one is the business funding, right? My main service, I can offer you 100K, right? We can get up to 100K if you have the right qualification, right? So what is that? And again, this is the cool thing about this is like mathematical, right? So there is a formula that says if you have this, this, and this, you're not really getting denied for this funding. Banks do different things, and things are going to change up periodically, but you're not going to get denied. You'll be able to get to that 100K mark in 0% interest funds, and you can use that pretty much however you want to be able to grow or expand your business, right? So what are the qualifications, right? So first, you're going to be leveraging your personal credit score. You have to understand that your personal credit score is going to be critical in being able to get this going, right? So that credit score needs to be 700 plus, I would say, is just off the top. But it's not just about your score, right? Because again, score can be, is this your FICO score? Is this your Credit Karma score? These things can vary as far as the actual number. So what we're looking at, we're just using the score as a barometer to say, okay, well, what is my starting point? And then I know we need to look into the profile a bit deeper, right? So if you don't know, if you haven't looked into your profile, you can look it up right now. You get an Experian account, that's free. You can get a Credit Karma account, right? And you can look at your profile and see what specifically is in there, right? So beyond the 700 credit score, here's what we're looking for. And these are some of the gems that I'm just going to share. And I hope if you are on, again, please share this with somebody. Follow me, because I'm going to be sharing this information for people straight up. So the next thing that we're gonna look at is the qualification, right? So that credit score is going to be made up of certain things. Your utilization needs to be right below 30% is the minimum, right? So ideally your utilization is below 10%. Now, quick gem that I will share is if your utilization is high and you have no derogatories, you have nothing going wrong with your profile, then you can do a few things to just shift that balance over to another vehicle. And what do I mean by that is your credit score is based on your credit card utilization. So anything that you have on revolving debt on credit cards, but it doesn't calculate what's on like your installment. So if you have loans or things like that, it doesn't calculate based on that, right? So your installment. So if you get a personal loan, let's say I have $10,000 in credit card debt, right? And my card is maxed out and my score is like 500 because my card is maxed out. If I get a loan, personal loan for $10,000 and I pay that off, I still owe the debt and it's 10,000 on this side, but now I have 0 on my credit card. Guess what? My credit score jumps way up, right? And now that could be the last thing I need just to be able to get funding, right? So that's a big gem that you want to be mindful of, is if you can shift that debt, right? And some people will use a HELOC if you got a HELOC on your house, because I have that on mine too, where it's like my HELOC is like maxed out right now from being in some different investments and things like that, and it's my credit score is literally like 850, like 845 or something like that. So that's something that you can do, is as long as you can shift that debt over, then you can get your utilization down. If your utilization goes down, then you can be ready for funding. If that's the only thing that you have, we're going to go through the rest of the qualification. But if that's the only thing you have, then you can shift that over and change that score like immediately. This can happen like pretty quickly. You can get a personal loan, and let me just tell you, SoFi, right? Best egg. You can go to Happy Money. You can go to these personal loan places, and you can get a personal loan within 48 hours, 24 hours. If you qualify, right, and you get that, you pay down your cards, pay off your cards, and then as soon as your balance reports, your score is immediately going to change drastically, and you'll be pretty much ready if that's the only thing that you have going. Right. So continuing on is that personal loan is big. Right. And shout out to everybody that's jumping on. Again, I am excited to share these gems. Share this with somebody, because I'm just giving all the game that you could possibly give. Again, I have in my own household, I would say, let's just say 250 each. Right. For me and my wife on 2 LLCs, we've gotten 500,000 in business credit to be able to use for all sorts of things. Right, to grow and expand. And I just want to share that information with other people, to one, that you know how to do it, and two, if you don't have time to just do all the legwork and all the stuff, that is what I do for people as well, is to be able to get you up to 100K plus to begin with in business funding, 0% interest for 12 to 18 months. And you can use that for pretty much whatever you want. So if you have a question, ask your questions. I'll be answering those on anything that's up here. But share this with somebody, definitely, so we can get into it, right? So again, the qualification is your credit. You need credit cards, right? This is a gem that people miss a lot, right? So I say, hey, I have a 700 credit score, but I'm getting denied, right? But you need to have credit cards of a certain amount, because the bank needs to know that they can trust you, right? With like, what amount can we trust you with? So if you have a credit card that's only $500, and that's the max that you've ever had, and maybe you've done well with it, but the bank looks at that and like, how am I going to trust this person with a $20,000 card when they've only managed $500, right? So the higher your credit cards are on your personal side, the better chance you have. So you need to be looking at, okay, well, do I have a card that's above $3,000, above $5,000, above $10,000, above $15,000? The higher, the better. And I would say the minimum is, do you have at least 2 cards that have $3,000 limits? Right. And not that you got those yesterday, but those cards are at least a year old. Right. So if that's you, say, hey, I got a couple cards that are 5,000, that are 10,000. If that's you, then great. If that's not you, then great also, because today is the best day that you can start. Right. Say, hey, I'm going to start in this direction right now, and say, I need to get some credit cards, right, that are 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. And if you follow, you will see there's certain credit unions and certain banks that you can start off with, right? If you build up your profile to a certain point, you can start off with certain banks to be able to get 15,000, 20,000 on the personal, right? So you have these large amounts that are showing up on your report. So that way, when you go for the business funding, you're getting even more, right? You're getting even more than that. So what are some of those to look at on the personal side? Navy Federal is a good one, right? So Navy Federal is a good one to start with. And there's certain credit unions. There's some Discover cards you can get, and you can do pre-approvals with these too, right? So you check your file, you do your pre-approval and you see, hey, what do I got? If they're giving you $500, then maybe don't accept it. If they give you 8,000 or 10,000 or 15,000 or 20,000 on your pre-approval, let it run. And that's the only card that you have. Now you're going to have to wait and let that season probably for a year or maybe 6 months at the least, right? But at least you got the ball rolling, and then you can work on other business stuff and make other moves, set up your LLC, all the stuff we're going to talk about tonight is set up your LLC, whatever it is that you need to do to be able to move things forward. You just work on that, but we got to get that ball rolling, right, on your personal profile. So whatever's missing on the profile, we want to just get things going. Again, shout out to everybody that's joined in. Please follow me and share this with somebody so we can get this game. I'm giving the game out, right? Everything I got, I'm giving it. So qualification. So we got your credit. The credit score is not the only thing, but the profile, right? So those credit cards are critical. So your credit age, right? So the average age of all of your accounts need to be above 3 years, at least 3-4 years, right? How do you know what the average age is? You can go to Credit Karma. I think you can see this on Experian as well, or whatever your credit monitoring is. If you need a link for credit monitoring software, I can give you that too. But you can look on those sites, even the free sites, right? And look, and it'll give you that summary, and it'll show you your average age of accounts, right? So if your average age is at like 1 to 2 years, and this is something I didn't share in the when I talked about the personal loans, is your average age and your utilization can be impacted by what are called authorized user trade lines. So you can get somebody else, if you have a family member, an older family member or something like that has had credit cards for a long time, and they add you as an authorized user, right? They have a card that's been open for 20 years and it's got a $20,000 limit, right? If they add you, both of those things get attached to your profile automatically. So what does that mean is if I have 10,000 on my limit, right? And I've got, like I said, 10,000 is maxed out, right? If I get a $20,000 card added to my profile, guess some quick math. If I do the 20,000 plus that 10,000, now I've got 30,000 over an overall limit. Even though this is not my card, this is someone else's, right? So, but when you look at the profile, you just see the utilization overall. So I've got 30,000, and now I'm only using 10,000 out of that 30,000. Somebody tell me, what is that percentage, right? So if I'm using 10,000 out of that 30, that's 33%. Right now, we still at the max. We want to be 30% as the absolute max. Ideally, we're below 20, and the great place to be is below 10%. But just with that one move of getting that authorized user trade line, you can change your utilization like immediately, right? This is the same thing with the age. So if the average age of my accounts is 2 years, and I add somebody's account that's got 20 years of history on it, it changes the calculation for what your average age is going to show up as, and then you can suddenly qualify, right? So these trade lines are available. You can purchase these trade lines from people, or again, if you have a family member or somebody like that, you can ask that family member to put you on. They don't even have to. You don't have to get a card, right? And I just did this today. I wish I had the screenshot, but I've been selling trade lines from my cards, right? So this is another reason to start to build up certain cards, personal cards in your name. If you don't have them, build them up, right? And be able to get to the point where you could say, okay, I've got this card has been open for 4 years, 5 years, and it's got $10,000 limit, $20,000 limit. People will pay to be able to do what I'm telling you now to qualify for funding, right? Or to qualify for, you need to get over the hump to get a house or get a car, or whatever the case. You can do that, and you can get those trade lines to boost you up over the edge, right? So this is like really, really critical stuff. And like I said, you can sell those trade lines, or you can buy those trade lines as well, right? So, and those trade lines will typically stick around for 60 days, right? So if you got everything lined up and you get that trade line, then boom, you're up. Now, the thing it does not do is it will not count as your primary account. So like I said in the qualification, you have to have credit cards that are older than a year, ideally. 6 months is the absolute minimum. 2 years would be great, right? You need personal credit cards, and those cards need to be above $3,000 in their limit, ideally above 5, even better if it's above 10,000, right? Now, one more thing is, if you don't have that, you can boost up your credit card limits, right? You can just ask for a credit limit increase, and you can call your bank If your utilization is currently low and you're maybe not using it, that's the best time to ask for an increase. And you can call them and say, hey, if I ask for an increase on my credit limit, are you going to give me a hard pull on my credit profile? If they say no, yeah, it's a soft pull, just go for it and just see if they give you the limit. Now, the hack here is you want the amount that you ask for, you want that to be probably 25 to 50% at most, maybe 25 to 40% of your current limit, right? So if you have $1,000 on your limit, then you're going to be asking for $1,250 to $1,400 as your new limit, right? Or to $1,500 as your new limit. So you ask for that, they approve it, you wait 90 days, rinse and repeat, and now you can inch your way up. If you already have cards and they didn't have high limits, you can inch your way up while you also get some of these other things, right? So again, this is Kyle Alexander. Thank you guys for those of you that are tuning in. Appreciate all the love. Again, follow me for more information and share this with somebody right now, right? Share this with somebody. And let me see somebody comment in the chat as well, right? So share this live for sure. And we're looking at, okay, so what's next, right? So you got the qualification, you got your credit cards, you got your average age of your accounts, right? You have no derogatories on your credit report. Now, if you have that on your report, no problem, right? So you can get this stuff removed, right? But again, that's the same thing as you got to start now, right? So let's look at the LLC structure. So the LLC structure is, say you got all that straight, right? You're ready for funding. You need to have your business set up in a certain way so that the banks will look at it. The banks need to look at it in a certain way so that it looks sexy to them, right? If it looks like a business that's going away tomorrow, they're not going to stick around, right? So what do you need on your business? This is basic stuff, but it's really, really important. A business website, right? A .com. And this is kind of the sneaky thing that they do is like, okay, they'll give you things that you can qualify for, but it's like, if this business is going to go away tomorrow, they're not going to want to do anything with you. You know what I mean? So are you paying for a website, a web domain? Do you have a domain-based email? Like, hello@suchandsuch.com instead of a Gmail or a Yahoo? That stuff can matter, right? So you have a business address instead of just a home address. Now, home address is not necessarily the end of the world, but because you can get funding with the home address, I've gotten plenty of funding and my business has been under a home address for certain banks. But ideally, you have everything lined up across all of your information, right? So the address needs to be this exact same on your EIN letter, on your bank accounts, on your articles of incorporation. Like if somebody were to just Google your business, all that stuff needs to be the exact same. So the order of this is really important. So you say, hey, I need the address first, right? So you're going to look up your name and you're going to make sure you have your business name solid. And looking at your address, you need to get the address first, that when you apply for the EIN, when you register your business, you already have the address in place so that way that gets put on all your documents and now you're lined up from the beginning. That's a huge gem bonus. If you're listening, write that one down, right? So that's a big part of the structure is like, what is my address, right? And let's talk about name real quick. So banks will judge you based on your name. So they have what's called a NAICS code, NAICS. So you have that NAICS code, right? And this might be, hey, you're in the consulting industry, or you're in trucking, or you are a service, you're in a restaurant or something like that. So there's different NAICS codes that are official codes that like, hey, if I go and tell the bank, hey, this is my NAICS code, or I'm signing up on, DunandBradstreet.com and hey, this is my NAICS code. You have the actual number, but they're pulling the number from your name, right? So they actually did this incorrectly for me because my business had developments in it and it was about developing people, but they thought it was real estate, right? So they just automatically put that and that's registered. That's like on some site for my business, right? But they're using the name to determine like, what is this? So when you look at that, you're going to say, I got the name right. And the name needs to be something generic. So you're going to say, hey, if I have my last name and then enterprises or group or holdings, or tech, these things are going to be very generalized so that it doesn't scare away the banks, right? So you need to be mindful of that, right? So that LLC structure is going to be critical. You're going to have your business visible, right? So again, you have the business website, but you also have your name on, you have your business on 411, right? Is it on Yelp? If somebody Googles your business, does it show up in the search results, right? And ideally, is it also like attached to you? So if you have, again, we talked about the generic name. If you have this generic name for your business, but then you also have a, you can have another business, right? Doing business as your client, your front facing name. So let's say I'm in the trucking industry and it's, Kyle Trucking, but I don't want to put that in front of the bank, right? So I make Alexander Enterprises as my main business that I'm going to do funding with. And then I have a separate DBA, even a separate website that's Kyle's Trucking. You know what I mean? So I can interface with people that way and I can get funding this way. So you have to be strategic about like, where am I placing these things? So all those things, if you have that qualification and that LLC structure, those two things alone will get you over the top to be able to say, hey, if I can go to the right banks, if I learn my funding sequence, which we'll talk about next, I can get over 100K in business credit like in 30 days. So, and speaking of 30 days, so let's look at the funding sequence, right? So what you want to look at is we want to know what are the big banks that are giving out the most dollars. So I'm going to give you a gem that I've learned from my $5,000 mentorship that I paid for, is if you go to iBankNet, right? iBankNet and and bank branch locator, you can look at the banks that are in your state and then you can rank them by how much money they have. So you can actually see, okay, well, which banks are the ones that have the most money, and those are the ones that are probably lending out the most money. So you can target those banks and say, okay, well, I'm going to go in order to say, okay, I'm going to get access to this bank, get access to this bank. And let me just share the ones that I've used to build up. Again, my wife and I have built up over $500,000 in business credit, stacking from different banks, right? And 0% credit cards. So some of the biggest ones you want to look at are Chase, right? So you're looking at Chase, we're looking at Bank of America, we're looking at Wells Fargo, like all those big banks, PNC. If you have a Truist in your area, then that's always a bonus, right? So some of these banks are giving out 20,000, 25,000. Things just changed in the industry, so Chase is being a little bit scary. So before we were seeing $75,000 on one card with Chase, right? We were seeing we can still get, if you're with the right person, we can get 50,000, right? And again, for those of you that are watching, share this with somebody, and because these are some serious gems. Again, I've paid a lot of money for it. I just want to share and help people to get ahead, right? So that the way that you're going to do this with your funding sequence, once you have your banks together, you are going to go to the bank, right? And you're going to figure out if you can find the banking representative that handles the business credit accounts, that does business credit and lines of credit, right? The credit cards and lines of credit for business. And you want to go in with the air that you are doing big business, like you have plans to, make $1 million in revenue. And when you're at that level, you're going to be connected to the right person, right? And this is what we've done the legwork to be able to get these people that are on the inside that can push the applications through in a different way than normal, so that the approval rate increases and the limits that you can get from this increases as well, right? So this might be the difference, and literally the difference between a $5,000 approval or a $10,000 approval and a $40,000, $50,000, $80,000, $25,000 approval, which can be a big difference, especially if this stuff is adding up, right? So we're talking about in our credit stacking sequence, if you have that banking representative, then that's the ultimate bonus, right? And again, you can work with people that have those relationships already. If you don't have the time to do the legwork, there are people that have those relationships. You can work with them, and that's what, if a good funding company is going to be able to have that. So if they're just applying online, that's not the end of the world, but they're not getting the max that you can get from each bank. Right now, the other thing about your funding sequence is you can know that certain banks pull from certain credit bureaus when they're looking at your credit inquiries, right? So as far as back to the qualification, we're looking at, your credit inquiries needs to be below 3, ideally 3 to 4 per bureau, right? So if you have more than 3 to 4 inquiries per bureau, if you look at your credit report, again, you can just pull up your credit report now, free on Experian or Credit Karma. You can just look at the report and see what's there. If you have more than that, then they're going to start looking at you sideways because you've gotten too many. You've been asking for too much money recently, or at least that's how it looks. So you can get those inquiries removed, right? And we'll talk about that at some point. But you need to be able to get that profile up to a place where you can say, okay, where's this bank going to pull from? So if I have 5 inquiries on my Experian and I have 0 inquiries on my TransUnion, guess what? I need to be going to Bank of America because Bank of America pulls from TransUnion. So when Bank of America pulls my credit report, they're not going to see the 5 inquiries on my Experian. They're going to see 0 inquiries, right? So they're going to say, oh, this person hasn't been looking for funding. And then they're going to give you either better options or better limit, or you're going to avoid a denial, right? So again, why is that important? Is because you can build your whole funding sequence that way. So I say, okay, I've got 3 banks that will do Experian. I go to Chase, I go to Truist, I go to whichever bank it is. And if I can get 10,000, 20,000, 25,000, 40,000 from some of these different banks, and just on Experian, let's say I got 10, let's say I got another 15, and let's say I got another 30, right? So that's 40, that's 55,000 just from Experian with 3 inquiries, right? So now I can move over to TransUnion and say, okay, now I got Bank of America, I've got 3 more banks, right? So I take those 3 banks and I got another 10,000, I got another 15,000, I got another 20,000. Now you're up almost over $100,000, right? Just from those 2. And guess what hasn't been touched? Your Equifax, right? So you can monitor your report. And this is what, again, a good company will do. And if you're willing to do the legwork, you can do this as well to say, okay, on my credit report, I can get my funding sequence organized to say, all right, I'm going after these banks next, and being able to get stacked up, right? Now, once we're fully stacked up, let's say we got 3 to 4 on each bureau and we went all the way in, right? So we went all the way in, and then now we can remove those inquiries and start over, right? Why is this? If you have inquiries, these are business inquiries. If you're doing it the right way from the right banks, these are business inquiries that don't show up on your personal side. So the accounts are not going to show up on your personal credit report. This is the beauty of business credit. I should have started with this, but if you don't know, business credit, you can use it for business. You can max it out as long as you're using it for business purposes. Again, they're not tracking what you're doing with it necessarily, but you need to be able to use it for business purposes so you can make the money back, right? But if that's maxed out on the business side, it has no impact on your personal score. Ask me how I know, because my business cards have been maxed out, like crazy maxed out. And my personal credit score was like 850, like max. It was like 845, 850, 849. And those cards are maxed out. If I had done that on my personal side, my score would be in the 500s, right? In the 600s. So this is the power, because now I can go do other things from my personal life. I can do other things now to be able to move myself forward, right? So this is really, really critical to understand. So again, with that funding sequence, once you lay those things out and you say, okay, I got my banks, now I can go and wipe the inquiries. There are YouTube videos, there are communities. I can share some things with you about how you can remove your own inquiries in 24 hours and 48 hours using a variety of methods with the CFPB. And if you make the right phone call at the right time, you get the numbers for the bureaus. You can get those removed because they're not attached to open accounts. So it's technically not your account personally, even though they pulled your credit because you have personally guaranteed the business funding or the business credit card with the bank, but it is not your account, it is the business's account. So that's why you have the grounds to be able to say, okay, this is not my account, so I can remove this inquiry from my report, and then I can go back. Now I've got 0 inquiries again, and guess what? I can go back and I can do more, right? I can do more funding and then just rinse and repeat. And this is how people are able to get up to 200, 300, 500K, right? Now let me give you one more on the funding sequence. Let's say you live in a state. I have a client that lives in Hawaii, right? And there's only so many banks that are in Hawaii. You've got some of the big ones, but then you want to target some of the credit unions that will give out, these higher dollar amounts too, but they don't have that many there. So what can this client do is they can open up a foreign entity, right? Write this down. Again, if you are watching this, I can't even explain like how much money I've paid to get this information, and I'm just sharing it. So if you're on here, write it down, share this live with somebody so they can get this information too, right? So, but you can do a foreign entity. So that person can open up a foreign entity in Pennsylvania, for example. They live in Hawaii. Their business is now operating in Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, that business can access the Pennsylvania credit unions, the Pennsylvania local banks. So that if there's a Truist, now guess what? They can get 25,000 from Truist. You can get another 40,000 in a business line of credit on one inquiry potentially from Truist if you have the right strategy, right? So that could be 70,000 off the rip just from one bank, right? You can go to Key Bank. You can go to all these different banks that are in Pennsylvania. Now this person that is in Hawaii can access this funding there. And guess what? You can repeat that if you want to, right? So I say, okay, I open up a foreign entity there. I'm opening up another foreign entity in Texas. And guess what? Now I can do A+ credit union. Now I can do all these different banks and credit unions that are specific to Texas, or at least in that local area. Now I can apply for that because my bank is now like a resident of that state. Again, if you have the right address, if you have all the LLC structure, everything I talked about earlier, then you can do that, right? So this is really, really critical, and you can rinse and repeat that as much as you need. So it's really important for you to know, okay, how much money do I need for my business, right? For my idea, for my mentorship, right? Like whatever it is that I'm doing as far as like, how am I going to use this money to make more money? That's the thing that's just really critical to know, right? But once you have that stuff in line, you can go and get this money, right? So again, it's possible to do yourself. Everything that I've done, I chose people to work with to be able to fast track my success because I was learning real estate. I was working on too many other things to try to do absolutely all the legwork, right? And this is why I knew how valuable it was for me. And this is why I help other people with it now, right? So if you need help with that and everything I'm describing sounds like, okay, that's cool, but that's going to take me a long time. That's something that I can help with, right? So if you go to fundingmyfuture.net, after this live, go to fundingmyfuture.net and we can book a call. You can see if you're qualified. And if you're not qualified, what steps do I need to take to be able to get qualified in the next 6 months, in the next 3 months? It could be the next 30 days, depending on where you're at, right? Or I can get the information and say, okay, I'm gonna run this myself. My business only needs, if I had $20,000, I could do damage. You know what I mean? You could probably do that yourself. If you just take what I gave you tonight, you can get easily $50,000. You know, there might be some trial and error and stuff like that, but you could get that if you line up your personal credit profile and that LLC structure that I just shared. It's the exact, there was no gatekeeping, you know, in what I shared, right? So if you do that, you can get that 50,000, right? So and if you work with a company, much more likely that you're going to get a lot more than that, right? If you have everything lined up properly. So let's talk about applications, right? So again, the best way to do your applications is going to be with a representative, a rep that's in the bank, right? That's going to be the best way to do that application. So again, you have to establish those relationships. And this is what the people that are in this industry or like myself are establishing relationships with the bankers directly, because it's a different push through. When you apply online and you're just a part of the regular herd, they treat you a little bit differently than when it's somebody that is like, there's like someone's vouching for you almost. So they're getting you past, it's like you're outside the club, you know what I mean? And they're getting you past the line to get to the front of the line and then see if you get in. Right. So it's like that same thing where it's like they're pushing past a lot of the typical blocks that you might have. You're getting past all of that. And then you're going forward to be able to say, okay, this is the most that I can possibly get. So the limits are higher. The approvals are more when you go through a rep. Right. So on the application, but if you didn't have that and you're just, hey, I just need to do the application, there's a couple things you need to know. Right. On the application, a lot of people go wrong because you say, well, how much is my business making? And they put, hey, I haven't made any money yet. So my business is making, $5,000 or $0. That's not what you want to see. We want to know what is the projected income. You can use your projected income on this. So if you have plans to say, okay, if I receive this $20,000 or $50,000 or 30, what would I do with it? And then what would my revenue be based on that plan? Right. And if you can reasonably say, hey, that would be $400,000 or that would be $800,000 or that would be $1 million, you can put that on your application. Right. Now, some banks are not going to give you more than 10% of what you put on the application. That is a super gem. So I'm just going to tell you again, I paid for this. I'm just telling you because I'm here on the live. If you didn't hear, I just passed my 50 subscribers, followers today on TikTok. I just started on TikTok. So I'm really excited to be able to go live right now and just share this information. I'll be doing this a lot more, but I'm sharing this information, right? So that 10% is a big gem to say, okay, if I've got 700,000 on my business income, there are certain banks, if I start to ask for more than 70,000, right? And this is just like a rough thing, then they're going to start looking at it sideways, right? And they might be starting to ask more questions or, limit it in a certain way. So if I put 50,000 as my annual revenue for my business, they're not going to give me more than a $5,000 card if I'm lucky, right? So that's a really critical part to note, right? Another thing with your application, why we started with the LLC structure, your application might get denied if your address is different on your articles of incorporation versus your EIN letter, right? Or different on your website than something else, or some state document. So your bank account, right? Or whatever bank account you applied with, you got the checking account there, and then you got another account, and the addresses are conflicting. That's going to cause a problem, right? So you need to make sure on your application that everything is tight. I can't stress this enough, is if you're tight from the beginning, then you're good to go, right? The more instability that they see with that, the more problems you're going to have, right? So get that tight from jump, right? So let's go on real quick to the pitfalls, right? So what are the pitfalls to avoid here in business credit, right? So the things that you do not want to do is you do not want to invest in something when you do not have an exit strategy in mind. This can be one of the most powerful tools to use because you are literally getting, without putting any money out of your pocket, right? You are getting access to 50,000, to 100,000, to 150,000, right? To begin with, in 0% funds that you can use for whatever purpose, right? So if you are just like out there, like, okay, I'm just going to try this, and you don't know, have an idea of how you're going to make the money back, that's a no-no, because guess what? That 12-month intro period is going to end at some point. And then if you got just this balance out there, even though it's still not impacting your personal credit, but your business does have its own business credit score that's based on that. And that can have a negative impact on things, right? So you want to be mindful of that and say, okay, what am I doing? So let's take real estate, for example, right? So I've done some things in real estate, and for real estate, you could buy a property and say, okay, this is like a turnkey property. I can get it for this much down, and maybe I can use the business credit for my down payment, right? Cool. You can get into it. You could do that. But if this is just a long-term play and you don't have any exit strategy, you're not going to refinance through the BRRRR method or anything like that, or like sell at a certain point and get your money back, eventually that's going to be kind of like you're paying 18%, 19%, 20%, for some banks at 24, 25%. And God forbid you have a penalty on there, they bump you up to 29%. This is going to be a credit card balance. You know what I mean? So if those numbers don't make sense, that's not going to make sense. So what do you use it for? It's something that has an exit strategy point, right? That you can say, okay, I'm getting into this, but then I can get out of it at this point. So if I'm doing a flip, that's great for flips. Why? Because if I have $20,000 card, I have a $50,000 card, I got a $10,000 card, I got all this stuff, right? So I have this and I can use it to be able to say, okay, I'm going to pay for my contractors. I'm going to pay for my materials, right? I don't have to come out of pocket at all. I can do this stuff to start my flip and to get things going. And then I sell it in 6 months, right? I make the money back, and maybe I've cleared $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $80,000, right? For anybody that's into flips and stuff like that. Now I can pay off all the business credit that I use. I still had no money out of pocket. I'm gaining points on all these cards. So I'm getting rewards. We've got travel miles, who knows what else. And I'm doing all that, no money out of pocket. And boom, now I can move on to the next one. I can get credit limit increases, right? So if I use all of my $50,000 card and then I paid it back in 3 months, or 4 months or 5 months or 6 months, the bank looks at that and says, okay, we're ready to do more. And you say, hey, bank, I need more. I maxed it out. I need more than this. So give me some more, right? So now you take that 50,000. And again, based on what I share with you, is you ask for the increase that is, 25 to 50%. So say I got the 50,000. Now can I get 75,000? Can you increase that limit to 75 or to 60 or to 65? And guess what? You just out of nowhere created another $20,000 that you could use, $25,000 that you could use for your business. And again, it's still at that 0% interest period, right? So that can be super, super powerful. Again, a flip, right? In real estate. So another thing that you would use it for is if you have a business, say you're not in real estate, but something that's going to have direct impact on your sales or direct impact on your productivity to the point that you're going to maximize what you're doing, right? So again, a virtual assistant. If you're not into virtual assistants, you need to. But if you think about this, I can hire somebody for $600 a month for them to work 40 hours a week on a particular aspect of my business, right? Either to work on the business that's going to lead directly to more sales while I am feeding my daughter or whatever it is that I'm doing with my time that's got me so busy. I can have somebody working for me for $600 a month, and that $600 doesn't have to come out of my pocket if I have a business credit card to pay for it. 40 hours a week, right? Now I would say that's on the medium side. Let's say we went high and it was $1,600, right? $1,600 a month. You can get like a really top-notch VA from the Philippines, $1,600, right? And let's say I did that, same thing, 40 hours a week, $1,600. Now, how many months would it take for me to regain what I had lost if it was $1,600 times 6 months, right? So let's say that that's $9,000. I have $10,000 to use for an assistant for 6 months to work for me 40 hours a week, right? On a thing. And does that free my time up enough for me to execute on the business, or can they produce income that's greater than that, right? So that's a big thing to be able to do. Another thing is mentorship, right? So I've joined a lot of mentorship programs, and if that person can tell you exactly how to do a thing and make money back from what you were doing, guess what? That is going to be something that's really, really critical, right? Because that person might charge $5,000. They might charge $10,000. They might charge $3,000. It could be $20,000. It could be $50,000, right? Let's take Myron Golden, for those of you that are familiar. Myron Golden is one of the a top-notch, business mentor. You could pay, he charges $55,000, right? Which is like, man, how could anybody afford that, right? But if I have $130,000 in business credit, and I know that he's going to teach me the thing to be able to get me to make $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month, or $100,000 in a day, if I'm doing these challenges or different things like that, then hey, I don't have to come out of my pocket. My savings is intact. My credit score is intact. And I could just swipe a couple cards and I've got $55,000 going to him, and I'm in his program for a year. Now I'm ready to get down and execute. All right. So let's just jump on to the next point, right? The next point is the mindset, right? So what is the mindset I need to have to be able to execute this? Anybody can get you. Again, it's a formula. If you have the qualification, your personal credit, profile, your score, if everything is in place, if you have your LLC structure in place, right? You've got all that stuff good to go. And it's a formula. You can get the money, right? You can work with anybody, or you can, you can go after some of this stuff yourself. If you have the time, you can get the money. But then what you're going to do with the money, and this is something I'm passionate about sharing with people, is what are you going to do with the money to be able to make more money? And if you're the type of person that is like a start and stop type of person, you're not a finisher, or again, you don't have an exit strategy in mind to say, okay, if I start this, then what am I going to do to actually, make this up in the future? If you don't have that, if you don't have a stick-to-itness, if you don't have like a grit to be able to say, I'm pushing this thing through, I'm going to make it work. If you join a mentorship or you buy a course and then you don't do what it says, or you get distracted because you've got 10 other courses and 10 other things going on, that's gonna be a problem. Ask me how I know, is because I've experienced it, and I'm just trying to share with you the things that I have gone through so that you don't have to go through them. All right. So a mentorship can be a game changer if you follow the directions, right? And say, when I join this, when I put this money down, here's the other part of the mindset. You want to treat the money like it's your own money, right? And this is where I went wrong too in the past, to say like, okay, I got this $40,000. Let's treat it like I worked for 20 years to save up this $40,000. So I'm going to be mindful. If I put down $10,000 on this particular thing, I'm going in. Like, I am doing everything that they say. I'm showing up to all the calls. I'm doing all the homework. I'm doing all the engagement, whatever it is that they ask of me to do. I'm reaching out to them constantly, like whoever this mentor is. I'm reaching out constantly, like whatever I need to do to be able to get ahead and get this down. I'm using this as if it were my own money, right? Or pick some person in your head that you care about, that you don't want to use up their money, right? Like, this money belongs to them, and I'm going to treat this like with the utmost respect, right? So that's the mindset you want to go into with, right? Now, the other thing is your personal practices and habits. You want to make sure that your personal finances, and this is something that anybody can do now. Do you know where the money is going, right? Do I know what my bills are? Do I know what money is going out? What money is coming in? Where's my cash flow? What is that? You need to be able to know that to be able to use business credit properly. Again, I can show you how to get the money. I can get it for you, right? That part is not the hard part. And again, even if your credit profile is not great right now, it's literally a matter of months, right? 6 months, you can get almost anything. 6 to 12 months, you can get anything straightened out, and you can start to improve yourself. You can set up your business in a certain way. You can get to the money, but once you get there, what are you going to do with it, right? So those are critical points. And the last one that I will make, again, I appreciate those that have tapped in. Stella, I see you. Appreciate you. Looking forward to connect and seeing how I can help. But again, share this live with somebody. Follow me. I'm going to be sharing more information like this, right? The last thing that's important to me, or just a personal thing that I want to share, is how am I giving back, right, in this process. And this is something that has been sticking out to me, but I really care about the next generation being able to have more information than I did, more information than we did coming up to this point. And what does that mean? They know exactly like financial literacy. They know what it means to invest, right? They know what it means to create generational wealth. They know what it means to look after their own and build their own businesses and things like that. So I am donating up to 90%, right? And I'm sharing this out loud, up to 90% of my revenue, which is absolutely crazy. But I believe that God is going to bless and blow this thing up to be able to get this information out to people and help even more people, because I'm getting less from it myself, right? So up to 90% is going towards a fund that's going to be helping young entrepreneurs to get into real estate, to be able to get into business, to buy trucks, and whatever it is that they can do to learn this information, so that we, either as a people and as a generation, can just be better off, right, when it comes to wealth. So this is something that you can help with. If you are watching this, that one, if you get funded as an entrepreneur, then part of that revenue you can know is going towards this cause. But two, you can also help because if you recommend people according to these recommendations that I said, and the default is a 700 plus credit score. But like I said in the live today, there is more information than just that. But if people meet those requirements and they get funded, then you can get a payout, like an affiliate payout of that too, right? So on average, I would say that's probably from $1,000 to $2,000, $2,500 per person. So if you recommend 3 people this month, a month of July, 3 weeks left, recommend 3 people, 1 person per week, and they go through and get funded, and you get $2,000 or $1,500 per person, right? That's $4,500 to $6,000 payout directly to you for the month of July, right? So that's probably like the easiest money that you can make, but you have to understand that this is available. And if you understand those qualifications and know the type of person as well, that's the bonus on top. So if you know those people, then send them my way, right? And then we can partner to be able to do that. And then every dollar that comes in is going towards that fund as well, right? So I appreciate it. I gotta, I'm amped up. I really need to be in bed right now. And who knows, my daughter may wake up at any moment. And I might have to go up in there, but I just wanted to get on here today. This is my first day, my first live, first opportunity to be able to do this on TikTok, because I just passed the 50 followers. So thank you so much for everybody that joined. Again, tap in with me. Feel free to message me. Again, fundingmyfuture.net is where you're going to go to be able to put in your information and to see, hey, do I qualify for this? If not, what do I need to be able to qualify? Like, what do I need to be able to move forward? And let's tap in, right? So I'll just leave you with, take the action now. If you're listening to this, you are an action taker. I feel that and I sense that. Take the action now and just be able to know, okay, I can move forward with this. God is going to look after me, but I have to be smart about it as well, right? So I have to take the action to say, wherever I am today, I need to be able to position myself to do more, right? To be able to do more so that I can also give more in the future, right? So again, I really appreciate it. I'm right at the dot. It's almost midnight here on the East Coast. So I'm going to tap out, but I will see you another time, right? Message me. I'll be going live some more. I'll be sharing more information, some more details about this. But much love. Appreciate it. Peace.